With only 2 rounds to go, a clear breakaway of the season's 2 major players leaves us with a much more clear-cut fight. Blow for blow, Modov and Derlicka are nearly tied on all their major stats this season, but the close points battle and an unfortunate DNF for Jesper puts him on a precarious knife's edge to close things up. A changing of the guard is soon to take place, but who will be the next to step up? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch Round 9 of the Precision Racing League's American iRacing Tuesday series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Nick Schmeg. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Ducky Beard. Nick, Sonoma will certainly make qualifying critical today, so for us to really understand why, tell us a little bit about this California track.
Joe, tonight you and I need to try to ignore the beautiful rolling mountains and vineyards in the background because we are in a very scenic part of California's wine country. I don't think that'll be too difficult though because we've got quite a show for us tonight. This track has massive elevation changes and the 12 corners here on the 2.5-mile course really like to sneak up on you in a hurry. That's not to mention the famous blind sweeping carousel or the turn 11 hairpin. This is the Precision Racing League, and precision will be the key word when trying to get around this track tonight. Let's take you down to the track now and show you the precision that you're going to need to have tonight in the GSRC lap guide.
All right, we've got Amjad Yaman in the GSRC BMW, so let's do a lap around Sonoma. Turn 1 is going to be easily flat out, but the line here is important because you'll want to swing to the left to help set up for Turn 2. This right-hander is extremely difficult with the curved entry, blind apex, and giant crest as you turn in. From out of there, you don't have much time before turns 3 and 3A. This quick chicane compresses on the first half, and then the car gets pretty light over the second half. It's incredibly easy to understeer wide. From there, a short burst takes you into 4. The overambitious will forget about the downhill braking and overcook this one. 5 requires no lifting, and then bring the car off to the right for the carousel. Once again, you'll find yourself dropping in elevation, but now you're also dealing with the G-forces of getting a car to turn more than 180 degrees. It's terribly important to get a run off of here as well, because as we get dumped onto the drag strip, the hairpin of 7 offers one of the few good passing opportunities around this track. Be careful about trying to pull an over-under though. There's a wide double apex, and you don't want to get tangled up by a miscalculation. Now we head into the S's of 8, 9, and 10. These corners will get progressively bigger and longer with long sweeping arcs. The line is all important, and getting off of it will lose you gobs of time. Here in 9, you need to make sure to hold all the way to the left on exit because turn 10 offers some serious dangers. Getting greedy and pushing wide can easily send you into the barriers on the outside. If you somehow manage to stay close to the car ahead, the hairpin of 11 is another potential place to set up an overtake. Be sure to square off the exit for a good launch, and from there, all you gotta do is straighten out the kink that leads you back onto the front stretch. And with that, you've now finished a lap around Sonoma.
You see a lap around here at Sonoma. Now, unfortunately, had to be in the BMW because we stayed in San Francisco. The team did, and, well, a fan who was just a bit too much into the movie Bullet saw the car parked at the roadside, and next thing we knew, it wasn't around, so we had to bring the Bimmer out and do a lap around here. Now, this series is, of course, brought to you by our wonderful sponsor, SimMSA, the Simulation Motorsports Association. And they are a sim racing platform created by experienced racers. Established in 2015, the association is bringing together organizations and communities to further promote sim racing globally. Concentrating on all sims worldwide, they offer a focused opportunity for sim racers to compete against each other. They also provide consultancy services to this growing esports world. SimMSA offers solutions for racing simulator requirements, custom-built simulator parts, complete customization, and upgrading of existing simulators. You can find them, again, at SIMMSA.net. Definitely a huge thank you to them for bringing these broadcasts to air here on GSRC for a season here in the PRL. We also have a Drivers' Championship that we've been talking a lot about so far. So let's take a look and see where that sits at the moment. I told you it was pretty close up at the top, and you can see only 5 points with this round and 1 more to go. Now, look at those drop points. That's the little drop next to it. The drivers have 1 drop week, which means if they do have a bad finish, those points that you see there will basically count towards their points total. That's why Jesper Derlicka is in such a bad situation. He has 0, while if Carl Modov has a bad race, he'll still get at least 25 points. Now, that's quite a few points off of a win, about 10 or so, so it puts him behind the 8 ball a little bit, but it'll save his bacon for sure if something happens. Ben Perez, who's been climbing steadily forward, just hasn't been able to do enough. He's about 20 points behind, which is still enough to kind of be in things, but he's really going to have to dominate these last 2 races to hope to have a chance. William Whalen down there in 4th is probably a bigger worry to overtake him. And then Christian Eisler, of course, has not really had the season he has wanted. We also have a teams championship, and Nick, what's that looking like at the moment?
Yeah, the Drivers' Championship gets all the buzz, and don't forget about the Team Championship. Team Bushfink Racing has a clear-cut lead, 162 points over the Andes iRacing Puma team. HJM Beef is right behind them, and Team Tortuga with Drlicka on that team, especially to take note of. They're in 4th place. STS Racing Team in 5th place round, just 8 points behind Team Tortuga, though. Things looking pretty good there to sort a couple of those positions out.
Yeah, amazing that none of them swapped places last round. We also have the race details in case you're just tuning in. What a good time to catch up with this series with how exciting things have been. Of course, we are in round 9. This is the penultimate round of the season. With this being GTE cars, like Nick mentioned a little bit earlier, these are pretty fast GT cars. The Porsche 911 RSR, the Ferrari 488, and the Ford GT, the latest version that they have. This is, however, only a 45-minute race. This is a sprint race that they run. It's not like the endurance races that these cars tend to run in the real world. And even more unlike that is the fact that they have limited the fuel. So you can see there's one expected pit stop to happen today, one scheduled stop. The incident limit is at 30, which means drivers will be disqualified if they have too many off tracks or car contacts. They need to keep it clean out there, and it's a little bit hard to rack up too many of them around this course because of how difficult it is to avoid the barriers if you have an off. And Nick, I'm expecting not only difficulty in being fast today, but in simply just trying to overtake out there. This course has just been notorious in every broadcast I've done for having a really hard time any driver working his way up the field.
Yeah, and especially we got to keep an eye on how Drlicka and Modov are treating each other on track. How aggressive do they get? This track is not easy to pass. There's only a few really good passing points in this track, but the big thing to watch out for today on track, I think, is going to be those two. How aggressive do they get? It is just a 5-point lead in the standings, but of course we mentioned the drop weeks, which is going to play a huge factor, I think, in this, and it's definitely going to play a huge factor in how they create their passing opportunities today as well.
We just watched Justin Hall cross the line. That last lap did not count for him, so he had an off track of his own. Jesper Derlicka just came back on. You see him on screen now. critically, he and Modov are looking a lot closer here in qualifying than they were in the warm-up. Derlicka had a half-second lead in the warm-up. Now it is only 4 1/1000ths of a second between them, with Derlicka on the front row and Karl Modov starting right behind him in third.
Yeah, that just goes to show you right there how competitive this series is getting. Towards the ends of the season, these guys are in it to win it for sure.
They've got about a tenth to our pole sitter right now, Christian Eisler, who sat pretty well on the grid last race, but had a bad start, which really put him under the gun. He recovered somewhat, probably would have liked a little bit of a better finish. Of course, he's coming around to complete another lap pretty soon through turn 10 and off to the hairpin of 11, braking hard, going it right up to the wall. This lap looking like it could be competitive, with 1:24.5 being his fastest so far as he crosses the line. What's this one going to do? Not faster. 1:25.1 that time by. So as Jasper and Karl try to get their laps in. I believe Karl might be on a warm-up lap here. We'll find out in a moment. I know he and Jesper just exited not long ago. He's coming to the line now, and as he crosses, that one does not count, so I think that was, in fact, his warm-up lap. Running out of time, though, with only 3 minutes left to get too many more in. We're looking at 1:25, 1:26 lap times for most of the field. This is Derlicka. That was another warm-up lap for him. Perez going to come across, sitting in fourth. He's not known for being great at qualifying, so this is a good showing from him, especially after the recovery he did. Not faster, about a tenth off his best time, but I tell you what, qualifying 10th at Interlagos, Nick, and then working his way up to fourth, that shows that if you put Ben Perez up at the front of the field, I think he's someone you have to worry about.
Oh yeah, for sure. And Interlagos, not a track where passing is incredibly easy either. A lot of the turns fairly similar to Sonoma in their layout, so definitely looked for him to be a threat today, especially starting fourth. If he went from 10th to 4th, imagine what he can do from starting in row 2.
Modov going to finish his lap one more time. This should be a hot one. He comes around those tires, out of the hairpin, now into the street course-like section at the start-finish line. As he crosses it, it is faster, and it keeps him in second. Actually jumps him up to second, past Derlicka. And Derlicka does not count that last lap. This is going to be his last time to go at it because he's just allowed to pit lane. He only has enough time to get to the line and start a hot lap. Meanwhile, we watch one of the Montini brothers, Francisco, as he currently sits in 6th position. Excuse me, it's Federico in 6th position. Francisco is in 9th. Looks like he had to slow to let one of the other drivers qualify. This is a bit of a tightly packed course, not the longest of lap times, Nick, but with the relatively small field, I mean, do you anticipate traffic being much of a problem?
No, I don't really think so, unless we see too many incidents at the front. We have like 18 drivers in here so far. Traffic will be a factor for sure. It is at every track, but I don't think it's going to play a major role in determining the outcome of this.
Maxi Sorella down in 15th. Usually a mid-pack driver, but I think because of the lack of attendance, he's been demoted a little bit. And towards the end of the field, he's got just this lap to go, and he should have only enough time to finish this lap and not get to the line before the clock runs out. Valenzuela in 10th last time by, not faster. In fact, a pretty slow lap for Cristobal.
You know, looking at Modov in 2nd and Derlicka in 3rd, I'm wondering, would you rather start second or third here? I mean, the first couple of turns here are those blind uphill S's, and I don't know if you have too much of an advantage on the inside or outside going up through them, especially with the right-hander afterwards. So I don't know if Dralica might have a slight advantage starting third or not.
Yeah, it's incredibly hard to tell, and you'll really have to have your wits about you as now the qualifying is finished, and so is Eisler. He's on the pole, but he's not electing to take one more lap. Didn't really seem to like that one. Let's see who else is just getting ready to finish. I believe Jean-Francois Carini, who outbrakes himself into the final hairpin. Doesn't look like this one's going to be much faster than that 1:26.3, unfortunately. Or will it? He's going to cross the line. He does go a little bit faster and gets to 14th. So Justin Hall, the next one, going to be crossing behind him. He's in 13th. That one doesn't count for Justin, unfortunately. Francisco Montini going to give up on his last lap. Both Montinis do as they enter in. So does Jesper Dralica. So he's not going to be able to overtake Modov. And Modov is coming to a halt on the track. That is it for his qualifying. I see Maxi Sorella still at speed, but I think he crossed before it was over. I'm not entirely sure.
A lot of these laps we're talking about not ending up counting. What that tells me is we have a lot of off tracks, and not necessarily the incident cap limit I'm worried about. It's more so it's pretty easy to clip the grass here in the wrong spot and get your car out of sorts. And that's another thing drivers are going to have to look for tonight.
Maxi is on a good lap, so it looks like he is going to be able to finish this. He's the last across the line, but that one won't count for him anyways. Well, that's disappointing there at the end of the qualifying. Not disappointing for our pole sitter, though. Christian Eisler puts it up on top there with a 1:24.5, but it is less than a tenth of a second faster than the driver flanking him there on the outside of the front row. That'll be Karl Modov starting there in the number 48. Jesper Dralica, who really needs to finish ahead of Karl Modov to try and keep himself more safe in the last round, will start behind him in third. Ben Perez looking a lot stronger here today, starting fourth. Billy Whalen still looking for his first win this season. He starts in fifth here with Federico Montini starting P6. Nick Harwood, great qualifying from him in P7 at the drop of the green, with Alex Albert starting in eighth. Then the other Montini, Francisco, he'll be P9, and Cristobal Valenzuela will start in 10th. Nick?
Yeah, row 6 back here where all the action's going to be. Takeshi Kita going to be in 11th place in the 30 car, and then Thomas Ellison going to be to the outside there, followed by Justin Hall in the 164 car and JF Karingi in the 13 car in 14th place. Then our top 15 is going to be rounded out with Maxi Sorella, who we just saw there finish up his last qualifying lap, followed by Hugo Gallas, Danny Duchesne, and Gary Schilling rounding out the field for us tonight.
There is your field, just waiting for a couple more cars to try and get their way onto the grid. So we'll have a full pace lap to watch and eye up how all the drivers are prepping themselves. This start to this race, anybody who's ever watched a race here into that first and second corner, I kind of worry, even with as small as this field is, whether or not they're going to be able to get through cleanly. So at this point, only Jesper Dralica and Karl Modov left to try and grid up, and now it's just Jesper up at the front, and with him popping his car out there, we are ready to go. The roof pace car gets ready to peel away. We haven't really talked about the pit entry a whole lot, except for watching drivers abandon their qualifying laps. Nick, I suspect that drivers will have to really practice that with the way that the cones are set up there, and where the pit limiter line is.
Yeah, not just coming in, but also coming out of the pits here. Pretty difficult coming into the pits. You have You got to go slightly to the left. You're used to veering a little towards the right for that turn 11 hairpin and setting yourself up for that and trying to outbrake the other person next to you. When you pit, you got to stick it all the way left to the wall and be careful you don't outbrake yourself in the single file pit lane road. It's very easy to do. It's not much traction in the pits there as you're really fast trying to get in there, trying to maximize everything you have. And then when you get out, it shoots you right onto the S's going uphill. I mean, what worse place to have to come back on the track to not only make sure you keep the car going forward in the right direction, but to make sure you don't have someone creeping up behind you.
Yep, everybody will have to have their head on a swivel for sure. We did talk about that there is one expected pit stop, so it will come into play. Now coming onto the drag strip, where they'll turn off of it just temporarily before they brake hard for one of the few good places to try and pass here into turn 7. And this always kind of trips me up, if I'm honest, Nick, is this wide double apex of that hairpin.
Yeah, there's almost, I mean, I don't have too much experience driving these cars. I'd like to think I do, but I would not survive a chance if I were in this race as a driver. But that turn especially, it really, you don't want to hit the curbs. You don't want to swing it wide. There's almost no good way to get in there, especially since it's such a good opportunity for passing. Your double file a lot of times through there just to make it all the more difficult for you.
And this is one they don't want to be double file through. Turn 10. One of, I think, the more underrated corners in racing, with so little runoff to the outside, and you are flying up to that, especially in these fast GT cars. But you can see with that early pit entry, the Roof Pace car is going to leave it to Christian Eisler to take control of the field. So as he weaves them around, he takes a very wide line through the hairpin, but that gives him a very good jump. And look at that. Jesper Durlicka is going to be well past the car of our second place starter, Karl Modoff, who falls back 2 positions even before they get up to turn 2 for the first time that they brake. Let's see if everybody is clean. It's very single file. We got one car off. That is Justin Hall spinning off into the grass, but otherwise everybody is through.
And Modoff didn't just lose the position to Durlicka. He lost 3rd place to Billy Whalen there. That's going to be just as difficult to get around him and then try to get up and fight for a spot with Jesper Durlicka.
Boy, not the start that Modoff wanted after he out-qualified him. But he did come back from a bad start at Interlagos as well and managed to win that race. So I would not count out the Club West driver. Down to turn 7 for the first time. Top cars aren't close enough to each other for a pass, but a little bit farther back, Cristobal Valenzuela and Thomas Ellison swap positions, move Thomas into the top 10.
We talked so much in the pre-show about the championship fight, not to mention the fact that Eisler is looking really fast right now. I would not take him out of the running to win a race and become an end-of-the-year spoiler in the W category, or in the column in the stat book for sure.
Yep, so far it's only been 2. If this is your first time watching, Jesper Durlicka and Karl Modoff have won every single race. So if Christian could break that streak, I'm sure he would love it, especially considering he just missed out on the championship for what was, I believe, the 2nd time last season. And obviously he's looking like he could finish within the top 5 this season, but I'm sure he would have liked to have been at the top spot. They have already finished the first lap. Both Durlicka and Eisler are stretching away. Whalen, though, is being put under pressure by our front row starter, Modoff. Looks like Francisco Montini may have had a little bit of trouble with his connection because he grayed out for a long time and now he's back. So yeah, that looks like a big connection problem. Right on board with Billy Whalen, looking back at Modoff. This isn't just those two fighting. That's also Ben Perez, our 3-time champion, sitting within the top 5 and certainly waiting for a good opportunity. Is a big off there for Karl Modoff, dragging his tires into the grass, but thankfully doesn't lose the car.
Looking at Billy Whalen right here, and he started 5th. He's good at this track for sure, but I don't know if he's not gonna hold up Karl Modoff just a little bit while Drlicka and Eisler are able to get away. I think that might play a factor. I mean, Whelan's got a pretty good gap on him right now, but especially in the turns of the last lap, Modoff was right to his rear bumper, and I don't know if he's going to be able to get around him too easily here.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised at how quickly Whelan was able to regain that ground on Drlicka. If anything, Drlicka might be the one losing a bit of pace because Eisler stretched it out to now about 2 seconds. As you mentioned, Billy Whelan is getting closer and closer to the back of that Ford GT, and this is one of the critical places where you want to be close. He gets a very good exit, but with about 2 car lengths between them, I'm not sure if it's going to be enough to make a dive. Indeed, he's just going to stay in line for now.
Whelan took a beautiful line right there through the carousel. His apex was beautiful there and perfect. Got a big run off of there.
So these guys stuck in a stalemate, so why don't we jump a little bit farther back in the pack to 6th place, where Nick Harwood has a mirror full of Federico Montini. They're coming up to turn 10 and towards the hairpin. Montini dropping back a little bit in the wake of Harwood, and as they break for the hairpin, not really going to have an opportunity for now.
That's such a tough place to pass someone, because first you got to get up right next to him. And like you said, turn 10, really underrated corner here. One of the most difficult, I think. I agree with you there, but that's it's hard to get up next to him. Once you get up next to him, then you have to worry about trying to complete the pass there in turn 11, which is, it's a hairpin, but it's a little bit bigger than a lot of hairpins. It's a little wider throughout that turn. Really hard to be able to keep the traction all the way throughout that corner.
Ooh, Harwood pushing the track limits as he gets off into the dirt slightly. Despite that, Montini not going to have the ability to try and send one into turn 4. So now they plunge down through the carousel and out onto the drag strip one more time. Both of them using every inch of track, and for now, Nick Harwood keeps the wolf at bay. Ahead of them, things are starting to close up, though. 2nd place, Jesper Drlicka looked like he was going to stretch away at first, Nick, but that has completely reversed. Look at the train forming behind him.
Yeah, Eisler pulled away from him, and Drlicka wasn't able to follow. He's got Billy Whelan closing in inch by inch every lap, and he's going to try to get up next to him there. Thought better of it, just couldn't quite take it in deep enough there, but he's going to get a really good run off the corner here, I think.
Ooh, he is right underneath him, poked his nose. Sometimes if you're daring, you could try something in 2, but he's quite close enough. Let's see what he's got underneath him. Wow, backs off big time. Jesper Drlicka lives to fight another day. So your order for this group going from 2nd back to 5th. That's Drlicka up front in the Ford. The Porsche is William Whelan. The Porsche behind him in green and white is Karl Modoff. And then the 3rd Porsche is Ben Perez in the black and orange.
I don't think Jesper Drlicka anticipated coming into this race that he'd be racing with Billy Whelan in the early stages of this. I think he anticipated a head-to-head with Karl Modoff like we all did. And I think he's thinking to himself, you know, hey, what are you doing up here? Whereas Billy Whelan, he just wants to race. He doesn't care about the top 2 in championship points. He just wants to race and get up there into that top 2 right now.
And unfortunately, this might not be the position that Jesper wants to be in. I know you're stepping in for Taylor, and thank you for hopping in to help cover for him today. One thing you may have missed for the rest of the season is that Jesper has almost Dixon-like abilities on saving fuel. So he'd probably like to be behind a car to really kind of use the draft. Instead, he's leading the train, punching the hole for everybody behind him.
Yeah, especially on the long straightaways here like we have there on the front stretch and the drag strip. That's pretty huge here at this track, the fuel consumption, especially when they have a required pit stop. We didn't touch too much about that on the pre-show, the fact that these guys are also going to have to work around each other's pit strategy here, and we might see a couple drivers like Karl Modoff try to short pit here, but then again, he's saving fuel, so it's hard to tell what a lot of these drivers are thinking at this stage in the race.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, especially knowing that It's hard to get that run to try and overtake out on track if they do indeed duck in. Back onto that drag strip once more. Oh, William Whalen just a little bit too far. Karl Modoff smells blood in the water. He ducks his nose in immediately. Down into turn 7. He's got the inside line. Can he get the launch off the corner? Whalen's going to try and deny him side by side through these S's. It's very difficult. A little bit of contact, more contact, and Modoff spins off. Whalen continues. Multiple positions being lost by Karl Modoff.
And he has to be careful rejoining the track too. Thomas Ellison came through there with a full head of steam.
Take a look at the replay here. I've seen that scenario so many times on this track, Nick, where 2 cars go side by side into the S's and only one comes out.
Yeah, it's a bad part of the racetrack to be side by side, but it's just a racing deal. It's what happens a lot of times going through there. I don't think there was anything. I mean, Whalen didn't want to give him too much room. Modoff, of course, didn't want to give him too much room. He wanted to get up there and fight with Dralica, and Whalen just wants to hold a line through there and keep going.
We had a major incident with Federico Montini and Alex Albert. You can see them tangled up. This was through turn 3 and 3/8. Now, this actually started in turn 2 when Montini had a big off. You're going to see it right here. Outbrakes himself off the course. This is what gives the opportunity for Albert. And unfortunately, 2 into 3. Wow, actually, Albert went way off course and then plunges right back into him.
I can't imagine Albert was too happy about the fact that he came right in front of him, trying to safely rejoin the track there, but not too sure Montini had any clue that he was there.
It looks like there was a second hit when they tried to get going, unfortunately. That will probably have a few hurt feelings once they get out of the car and talk after the race. You can see Albert continuing in 16th. Fans of Karl Modoff, he is back in 9th. He's already overtaken a couple cars. In fact, a battle is happening in front of him that will help him gain more time. That's Valenzuela and Kita swapping positions. And indeed, he gained a fistful of tenths just in that one corner.
Yeah, you mentioned the other incident rejoining the track there. That was Albert getting into Maxi Sorella there. Sorella's got some left front damage from that as well.
Right on board with Kita, looking back at Valenzuela. Looks like Modoff already setting him up. Not quite close enough for 4. Oh, but he's going to go a little bit wide as Valenzuela outbrakes himself. The track stays in that same direction down through 5, so looks like Karl Modoff is going to move up into 8th now. He is making very quick work on a track such as this, which I would have expected would have put him at a severe disadvantage.
Yeah, and you hear all the time in racing that if you're going to have a problem, you want to have it early in the race. I think Modoff just needs to start looking to pass these cars right now and to get back up in at least the top 5, and then he can go top 4, top 3, and try to inch his way back up there. He's definitely got the speed to do it. I don't think he sustained too much damage from the incident earlier, but
as we take a look back at the leaders, Jasper Derlicka still giving chase on Eisler, but it is stretched out because of the earlier problems that he had to about 8 seconds. And Whalen, even though he had contact, certainly doesn't seem to be slowed down by it. He's still on the back of Jasper Derlicka, and they have Ben Perez waiting in the wings.
Yeah, I've been very impressed by Billy Whalen's speed tonight. He's just been able to, and it wasn't just a short run speed either. We're over 10 minutes into this race, and he's still fast. The only reason he got side by side with Modoff there is because he had a little incident and went a little wide out of this turn right here, and I've just been very impressed with his performance tonight so far. I think he can definitely get around Derlicka. He's just got to be patient. He doesn't want the incident he had prior a couple laps ago to repeat itself, but with Derlicka.
Yeah, and I wonder if that was weighing on his mind, because he had a good run up to 7 there, but he decided not to take it. He's still sitting behind, maybe waiting for a slam dunk moment where he can make the pass work. The other question is, when will the pit window open? And I think we're getting relatively close to it soon, with nearly 15 minutes being up in this race. Alex Albert actually just came in. Now, he had that early damage, remember, because that incident we saw. So he's almost had his hand forced. And this might actually be the very cusp of that window, considering he did seem to wait a couple laps before he came in.
Yeah, that might play in his advantage later in the race when he's battling for a position further back. He might gain a couple spots. That spin he had might play out in his favor.
Meanwhile, Takeshi Kita still hasn't been overtaken by Modov, but that's not for lack of trying. Modov is right underneath his rear wing. They swing through 5 and now down towards 6. A little bit of a look to the inside by Karl Modov, but can't make that one work. This is where he really needs to try and get the attempt happening. Down towards turn 7, and he is too far back for this one. Well, he doesn't seem to think so. He's still looking to the inside anyways. Andy's team driver holds him off. They work their way through the S's. This is where it could get a little bit frustrating for Karl, knowing that every second counts. He is well behind the leaders, almost 10 seconds back after that initial incident, 13 seconds back of Jesper Derlicka, the driver that he really wants to be ahead of.
Yeah, the passing here, not as difficult as other tracks, but the setup for the pass is really difficult. There's just no good place here to try to get a run. We've seen like the carousel, people have gotten a run, but then to get side by side with them through those next sets of turns, it's just so difficult, and we are really seeing Karl Modov experience that struggle right now.
And Kita doesn't seem to be interested to pay him any favors at the moment, as they come down to turn 4 once more. Kita looking a lot more steady than his teammates, who gave up position in that very corner and went wide. Two very different lines. Last time I thought he was looking to the inside, but instead it looks like Karl Modov just taking a much more shallow entry than Kita is into that downhill plunging left-hander.
Modov, I'm sure, is looking for multiple lines to get around a couple of these more difficult turns where he's struggled, and like the carousel, we've seen him not quite get good runs off there the last couple of laps, battling with Kita here. I think he might just be looking for different lines, grooves to get around a couple of these turns and try to search around the racing surface as we have just under 30 minutes left.
Let's take a glance back up at second place, though, because Whalen still is threatening, and now we're into the pit window. I wonder if next time by he might try to come in to see if he can get around our current championship leader, especially an attempt also to get away from Ben Perez, who is breathing down his neck at every corner. They continue to lose track of Eisler, about a 10.5 second gap up to him now, Nick.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that 10.5 second gap that the Eisler's put on him. I think Billy Whalen, if he can get around Jesper Derlicka in the pits, he's going to punch quite a hole in that 10-second gap, I think, once everything cycles through. He is fast. I think right now he's just being held up right now by Derlicka and not pressing the issue too much.
Yeah, if any of these other drivers are faster than the Iceman, and we ride on board with right now, this has been a boon to Christian, who has been looking for some good results and really hasn't shown the pace as much here today, both taking the pole and convincingly running away. To me, says that he's turned things around that, or he simply seems to like this track. Back in second place for another lap through the hairpin. Whalen just looks so much faster, but doesn't seem to be able to do anything with it because he catches him mid-corner, Nick.
Yeah, he's looking. It's just he's trying to complete that setup to the pass and try to get around him and just try to finish the deal, and he just can't quite do it. He gets so close. You just saw him there get really loose through there and try to compose himself as he'll get right back on the prowl here.
Yeah, he had a much better run out of turn 2, but there's not much braking into that 3A chicane, and so he had to back out of it trying to save the car. Of course, Whalen really not as much involved in the championship. Oh, big off there behind them as Ben Perez was trying to get a run. He knew how close he was, and it unfortunately bit him, losing a little bit of ground to Whalen.
I was about to throw another variable in the hat here, saying that...
Sorry, let's go to 7th right now because Modov finally might be able to make the pass. There you can see he's going a long way around. Is it too long? As he almost outbrakes himself, he looks for the speed off the corner and completes it, doing it the hard way.
That was impressive. He's looking for every groove around this track to make passes, and you just saw it right there.
Wow, that took a long time for him to get one car. That means the gap up to Thomas Ellison is now nearly 5 seconds to close in on 6th. He's got some work to do for sure, and he's 26 seconds behind our overall leader, as well as 15 seconds behind his championship rival, Derlicka. Ooh, side-by-side action between Sorella and Carini, and I think Jean Carini just took that position away. Yes, indeed. He managed to make the overtake. That was for a top 10 through the hairpin. Getting close to about halfway through this race now. And still, the only drivers that we've seen, actually, there's only one driver out there who has taken the stop still going, and that is Justin Hall. That was about 3 laps ago. Everybody else who stopped has retired. That includes Albert and both the Montini brothers.
You briefly mentioned fuel saving earlier in this race, and I'm just wondering what kind of an advantage Billy Whalen and Benjamin Perez right now might have, because they've been right behind Jesper Derlicka this entire race so far, just like this, like a freight train. And I just wonder if they're going to be able to stay out longer instead of short pit Derlicka to try to get around him and have some very fresh tires for the last 10 minutes or so of this race.
Have to wait and see. So far, they don't seem to be in a hurry to short pit to try and jump him. So looking more and more like what you say is happening. They're just staying in line, trying to maybe lift and coast in certain places. We have seen a few attempts. Oh, Willie Whalen going off. And he comes back on without losing too much, but puts the car in danger by sticking 2 tires in the dirt. Right on board with Ben Perez, the Hoosier, giving chase on these 2. 3-time champion that has yet to win this season. And as he sits in 4th with his former rival, Christian Eisler, pulling away, it's looking less and less like this is going to be the race where he breaks his duck. Wheels off into the dirt for Ben Perez, too. All drivers pushing the edge of this circuit.
And time is flying by, too, right now. Eisler is looking like he is in very good shape with over an 11-second lead right now.
And not only his good pace, but good pace for Carl Modov, who has cut that 4-second gap to Thomas Ellison, the next car up, down to 3 seconds. And this is effectively damage limitation at this point for Carl. It's going to have to take something dramatic for him to catch the driver that he wants to catch. That is Jesper Derlicka. As we watch Carl Modov, who has been chipping away at that lead, one last round at Interlagos, still sits at about 5 points back, is going to lose a few here, but will still be in the fight. Will just be on the back foot going to the back round if they finish where they are.
Not what Modov needed at all. Not just for points' sake, but also for momentum's sake. Headed into Sebring next week. I mean, you never want to be coming off of a 7th place finish, fighting for a championship going into the final round.
Still riding on board with him. Can report that none of our leaders have pitted still. Everybody staying out, waiting for the last second. So far, we still have 15 out of our 18 starters still running. We've got another taker on pit stops, though. Gary Schilling, and the number 17 car has hit the pit lane. Easy for me to say. We've caught just a glance of him. Now we've got the cameras on him as he pulls around the multiple corners in the pit lane to find his stall.
And the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place battle that we've been watching, they're about to come up on Justin Hall. We wondered earlier if traffic would be a factor. It's only one car, but then again, this is Sonoma. There's not too many great places to pass. I'm wondering if that's going to play any kind of a factor here as they work around, and it does not as he pulls off there in a great spot.
Great awareness by the number 164. He lets all 3 of them by and doesn't interrupt it. Justin really doesn't have anyone to battle with. He's a lap down and about 45 seconds back because of an early incident to the next car running and already having taken his pit stop. An opportunity for a stop for our leaders once again. Eisler doesn't take it. Jasper Derlicka, he doesn't take it, and neither does Whalen or Perez. I want to give some credit to the 5th place driver, Nick Harwood. He's about 3 seconds back from Ben Perez, but hasn't been dropping fairly quickly. He's basically just holding station. So while he's kind of in no man's land, Nick, this is showing he's got good pace with some of the top drivers.
Yeah, and if Harwood can perform well in the pits here, get in and out real quickly, I think he might be able to catch up to this pack of 3. And of course, it all depends on what they do in the pits. But yeah, Harwood's definitely got a good pace here, a very underrated pace. We haven't been able to talk about him much, but you know, nowhere near the cars behind him. He's got about an 8-second gap or so. But yeah, looking real good right now for Nick Harwood in P5.
Here we see the number 19 continuing on. He's going to get to lap the car of Justin Hall 2 here in a moment. One of Hall's HJ Motorsports teammates is Thomas Ellison, sitting in 6th, but for how much longer will he be in that spot? He's Modoff's next target. The number 48 has been creeping up. And actually in multiple corners now, I've seen Ellison lock those tires up, start to heat them up. He might be overdriving the car to try to get away from this green and white Porsche. Coming down to the pit entry. This could be a chance for Carl to also pit to avoid having to pass him on track, but he's not going to take it this time by. He does close under braking into the hairpin. Gains a lot of time.
Surprised Ellison didn't choose to duck into the pits there. He got really sideways there out of turn 10, and that would have been a good time for him. Already slow there. He would have lost less time than had he pit on a lap that was good. It looks like he said, just overdriving it, tires wearing a little faster than Ellison would like them to right now.
And now he's got the added pressure of a mirror full of Modoff. Once again in 3A, he took a lot of curb there, and the car was bouncing around. They come back downhill, and it took a while for Modoff to get Kita. What about Ellison? How hard is Ellison going to fight, though? He takes a wide line while Carl Modoff squares it off. And Kita actually hasn't dropped off of Modoff. He's been riding his coattails up to this. So maybe Carl's got to watch out about how aggressive he is in his moves on Thomas.
Yeah, the last thing Modoff needs right now is to lose more positions. Doesn't want to make another mistake and fall even further back through the field.
Oh, second place is starting to get hot, and William Whalen is starting to make attempts at that spot, but he doesn't quite make it stick. Late on the brakes for Jasper Derlicka is going to deny William Whalen, the Canadian, for another lap.
Yeah, Whalen was really looking there, and not just that, but Perez laid back quite a bit. I think he may have, at first I thought he was headed towards the pits, and then he stayed out, and I think what he was doing was just laying off the gas a little more. that would have been a really rough spot for Whalen to try to make a pass. I think Perez was just anticipating maybe some contact, maybe a little trouble ahead of him, laying back to try to get around some potential danger ahead of him.
Staying on this, and we should still stay on this battle, but I want to update that Ellison did, in fact, pit, releasing Carl Modoff to try and chase down Nick Harwood next, but it's going to be a much larger ask because it is a 9-second gap, and as we said, Harwood looks like he has pretty good speed. So, this battle for second continues. Derlicka leading Whalen, leading Perez, trying to decide the podium. Now with only 16 minutes to go, we're getting to the end of the pit window.
Big game of cat and mouse here, especially for Derlicka. He's got the most fuel burn. Like you said, he's just punching a hole through the air up there, not being able to save at all. As I'm wondering if they're going to duck in here, any of them. It doesn't look like it. But, yeah, I think Whalen and Perez can stay out way longer. And Derlicka, I don't think, wants to be the first one to come in. Because I think he knows he might not have the pace to get back around these two. And it's tough for him. He doesn't want to run out of fuel, obviously. But 16 minutes left. We're getting down to the wire here.
Well, I'm more surprised that both Whalen and Perez didn't come in, as Whalen once again getting very close. He's so good at turn 2, but he can't do anything with it. I feel like this is a tactical error from William, that he should have pitted last lap, 2 laps ago, 3 laps ago, and try to jump Jesper.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think as soon as Whalen gets ahead of Derlicka here, if he can on track, if he does that before Derlicka runs out of gas, I think Whalen, as soon as Whalen pits, Derlicka's going to follow him right in. And they're going to be battling as they come in and battling as they come out. And that's not what Whalen could have had here. I agree with you there. I think he could have pulled away from with a little bit of pitch strategy.
Right underneath him, now heading through the S's. Can he hold on to this gap, withstand the wake of the car ahead? You can see bit by bit he starts to lose it instead of coming forward. What about turn 10? He closes in once again, tries to stay underneath them, just loses a little bit of ground, and yet again, none of them entering the pits.
And I wonder what Perez is thinking through all of this, what his strategy is, if he wants to jump one of them or both of them, and get them both in one shot. I wonder what his pit strategy, I wonder what's going through his head right now of calculating fuel and how many more laps he can stay out there. It can't be too many, but then again, he is saving fuel.
Still everybody out there other than Ellison taking that early stop, Justin Hall having been in and out, and Gary Schilling as well having taken his stop. But no other cars have pitted besides those 3 as we watch this battle for second place now plunge down through the carousel once more. There's another taker. Maxi Sorella from what I believe was 11th has pitted. He comes to a halt and finds his stall.
I think it's got to be within the next 2 or 3 laps for these drivers here. I think it's got to be soon.
I agree. Let's see if any takers decide to pit here.
Yep, there goes Perez.
And it's Perez. Now somebody's willing to try and make a move. Perez, can he jump both of them? He looked very quick around the hairpin entry, and now he trundles down the pit lane. And Modoff does. Modoff pits.
Very interesting.
Remember, Modoff was chasing Nick Harwood, and he was gaining ground very quickly, quicker than I thought he would on the number 19. So does anybody answer is now the question. Will we see the likes of Derlicka and Whalen duck into the pits to try and keep the undercut from losing them a position? Also had Carini. Jean Carini has pitted. Perez is already back out on track. He returns in 6th place, and critically, he comes back with a completely open track ahead of him. So this is a great opportunity for him to put his foot down.
Yeah, that's huge. I think he's definitely going to be able to jump these two drivers here, Whalen and Dralica. I'm just wondering who's going to come in first, Dralica or Whalen. If Dralica comes in, I've just got to imagine that Whalen's going to follow him right in. But if Whalen comes in, and Whalen is laying back a little bit here, I'm wondering if he's setting himself up here. Dralica's in, and they're both in.
And so is our overall leader. So let's watch the likes of Ben Perez and Carl Modoff to see what happens after their stops. Perez now heading through the S's. Both Eisler just hit his stall, and Dralica and Whalen still slowly trundling towards theirs. Perez is now coming up to the pit entry himself. He comes around the final hairpin. Dralica and Whalen are in their stalls. Should expect about an 8-second stop. Dralica is coming out now. Where is Perez? Perez is coming. He's got a head of steam. He's able to get Whalen, but not Dralica. Once again, even though he was leading the group, Jesper saved the most fuel out of anyone. That is just incredible. I don't know how he does that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And to have that big of a gap, it wasn't just like he saved more fuel. He saved quite a bit more fuel. I mean, that's a pretty big gap he's going to put on Perez and Whalen here.
2 seconds quicker in his stall than both Perez and Whalen.
Unbelievable.
Just ridiculous. So they're gonna have to put a BOP just on Jesper Dralica to try and keep him from winning so much in this series. He's not looking like he's going to win today, though. That is Christian Eisler, who's back out of his pit stop, still leading by a handy 11 seconds. With 10 minutes left to go on the clock, all he has to do is cruise to victory. Even if he was a second slower, Dralica would have to catch and pass him. So Takeda finished his stop and jumped Thomas Ellison in that. That's one that we weren't watching. This is a nice little battle for 7th place.
Shouldn't surprise us. I mean, we didn't talk about it much, but it just should not surprise us. Kita was really fast. As soon as Modoff passed him there for 7th, I believe it was at the time, he was right in his trails. He was right keeping pace with Modoff. So Kita has been really fast this whole race.
He certainly has, which has kind of been the way he's operated most of the season. He doesn't qualify very well and slowly works his way forward. Not a lot of positions today, but there weren't a lot of positions to be gained as he started in 11th and is currently in 7th, but now he's going to have to hold off the 027 behind him. Seems to be eager to try and regain that spot. And down through turn 5, Kita still leading the way in the Andes machine. Ahead of the HJ Motorsports of Thomas Ellison. And this is one of the closest battles that we've got out on track. The only other close one is between Perez and Whalen, who also swapped in the pit stops, similar to these guys. And once again, we saw Thomas Ellison struggling to slow the car up down into the hairpin.
Yeah, one big error like that at a track like that, especially when you have so much speed after that turn there, it's really going to hurt a large portion of your lap, just about a whole sector of the lap, and that's definitely enough for someone like Kita to put a gap on you in front of you.
So let's stay on this battle since it is our close one. But for those curious about the championship situation after this, Dralica is going to, if things finish how they are, it depends on if Carl Modoff can catch Nick Harwood. He's going to be, Dralica's going to finish 2nd, and Modoff looking like either 6th or 5th. So that should spread them apart by roughly, I want to say, 6 to 8 points more. Which, with the 5-point spread, if it's 8 points, that will be 13 when they come into the final round. That's not accounting to bonus points at the end of the race, which can be accrued by both of them, depending on if they have a clean race in terms of incident points. So the bad news for Carl Modoff is that if that is the scenario that happens, Carl could still win the race, and all Jesper has to do is finish within 3 places, 4 places even, and take home the championship. It's going to have to hope for a very bad race for Jesper to be able to overcome him.
Yeah, the fact that Dralica has no drop points is going to be his big saving grace if things are as they stand at the end of this when the checkered flag falls. It just, you know, yeah, I agree with you. He's going to need a really bad race there at Sebring next week, but we'll just have to wait and see.
And my favorite stat of the season is looking to get even stranger. I don't know why I keep clinging to this, but this is just such bizarre results. Karl Modhoff has finished in either first or fourth in all but one race. And that race was, yes, I know, it's very strange. And that one other race, he finished in sixth. So if he finishes where he is, he's going to have nothing but firsts, fourths, and sixths. I don't know what it is about those spots that he likes, but what a very bizarre consistency that he's proven. Currently working his way out of the hairpin through the S's. He's cut the gap down to about 3.5 up to Nick Harwood, but it is not quick enough at the moment for him to be able to both catch and pass Nick before the race is over. He's going to have to hope for Nick to make some mistakes if he can get up to the top 5. Back down in 12th position. This is a battle we haven't seen, and it's looking like it could erupt as Duchesne, who is in the white Porsche, is being chased by the Andes car of Hugo Galaz, but a bad exit out onto the drag strip means Hugo's not going to get an opportunity into the braking, or is he? Wow, late on the brakes down into turn 7. He gains a lot of time, but even though he stuck his nose in, that never looked on.
Yeah, the last couple of turns, last 4 or 5 turns, Galaz has been really driving it deep into the turns, and Duchesne's just kind of watching in his mirror like, I don't think that's going to work. I think he's just kind of waiting for the dive bomb. I don't think he wants that, of course, but I don't think that's what Galaz is trying to do. He's just been driving it real deep, trying to fight for every position here at the end of this.
Yeah, very different lines in nearly every corner we've watched with these two. Usually you can get slightly different lines between drivers, but these have been dramatic. So as they work their way through 1 and into 2 one more time, he gains yet again, and he loses on the exit. Someone needs to talk to Galaz about the slow in, fast out theory.
He's got it a little opposite right now, but yeah.
And while the battle for 7th has certainly not gone away, Ellison has been holding Kita honest. It has been about half a second gap between the two of them. So while Ellison has not been able to gain, he's keeping the pressure on. Down to under 4 minutes left to go in this race. Still 15 runners. We haven't lost any since early stages. Schilling's still the last runner. He's right on board with Ellison, the New York driver, getting a windscreen full of that Andes car for pretty much every lap since the pit stops ended. You know, another bizarre development we haven't covered. We thought Ben Perez and William Whalen would be the fight to watch, but our 3-time champion is rocked up to the back of our potential champion in waiting. Jesper Dralica has about 3/4 of a second ahead of the #1 car, and Perez has left Whalen in dust, so could Dralica maybe lose one more position before all is said and done?
Yeah, I'm sure Modhoff is looking at his black box on the relative right now and hoping that's what happens. I'm sure he'd love to see the 97 drop 1 position right here to Perez, but Perez just not looking like he's got the conclusive speed to get around Dralica right now. I just can't see him getting around him here in the next 2.5 minutes or so without some kind of bigger error from Dralica.
That was Gary Schilling we saw, who was the last car on track, just letting the leaders through, trying to not get in the way. And we mentioned that Perez is third in the championship, so it will help him to finish ahead of Derlicka, but right now he's got 20 points up to Jesper, so it really won't mean a whole lot, especially going towards the last rounds. It still doesn't set him up to be in that great of a position to try and take the championship, especially since he'll also still have to overtake Modov, who he is going to finish ahead of on this race, but I don't think will overtake in the points, despite being multiple spots ahead currently. On board with Jesper, looking back. Derlicka has won the most races so far this season. Sitting in second, going to get another podium to his name. Even if he gets passed by Perez, he's still got quite a nice gap back to Whalen.
Perez got him real hot there in the hairpin. Sorry, there in turn 11. He got real hot and kind of slid out the back tires just a little bit. Locked it up, trying to get him a little slowed down. But he's definitely trying to be a hard charger here to get around Derlicka.
Now the plot thickens, because despite my naysaying, Karl Modov has ran down Nick Harwood, and he is within striking distance. He's going to have 2 laps to get this done. He has really got to go do or die if he wants to try and minimize the points between himself and Derlicka. But if he does pass Harwood and Derlicka gets passed by Perez, that is going to be a big swing in points.
Yeah, Modov has to do what he has to do right here. This is this is a very pivotal position. I mean, if he can pass Harwood and Perez ends up passing Derlicka, that's 2 spots in total that Modov will have closed in on Derlicka there.
White flag is now out. Christian Eisler leading by 12 seconds over Derlicka is cruising to victory to be the first driver besides Jesper or Karl to win a race this season. But the battle is on for second place, because as they reach the white flag, it is only 3/10 between them. And Perez has every reason to try to disrupt things for Derlicka.
He's got the speed. Don't know if he has the line to get around him, though.
Tidy turn 2, but we've seen it before. There's just no way past through 3 and 3A. Keeping half an eye on them, half an eye on Karl Modov, who is still hounding Nick Harwood. Come down now through 6, through the carousel. This is one of the good places to try and pass. Let's see if he can set him up. He's looking a little bit too far back to me. Indeed, a great exit by Jesper is going to keep him safe, as now they break for 7. And it is going to have to take something phenomenal for Perez to be able to get by. Meanwhile, the battle between Harwood and Modov also not going to be settled in turn 7, but one last corner to go for Christian Eisler. Boy, it took him a while. And I tell you what, he's probably going to feel vindicated, because we certainly have not been kind in compliments this season. Today, you can be nothing but kind, because it's been pulled a flag for Christian Eisler taking the win. And Jesper Derlicka, as he comes out of the final corner, is going to extend his points lead, coming into the final round by finishing second, just barely ahead of Ben Perez, while Whalen takes 4th, and Nick Harwood survives the attack as Karl Modov takes a disappointing 6th place.
Modov came so close there on the final turn. He just needed about 1 more lap, I think, to get the job done. He came right up to Harwood's rear tires and, just ran out of racetrack there.
I'd say what, Kita, who was battling with Ellison, something must have happened to Ellison, because he's fallen way back, and now it's a battle between teammates as Cristobal is well ahead, coming down with the braking for the hairpin. All he has to do is get smoothly on the power, and he does. With a triple 3, takes 7th place, while Kita settles for 8th. And Sorella overtakes Ellison in almost the last corner. The penultimate corner. Is Ellison out of fuel? Ellison is looking very slow. I wonder if that damage that we see on him has to do with him losing sight of Kita as he sends it into the wall in frustration after all that. So we're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, and on screen you're going to see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to Sonoma Raceway. We watched the penultimate round here in the American iRacing Tuesday series. One is left to go, and unfortunately for the fans, things have widened, but it's very fortunate for a driver in second. Before we get to him, look at who won. Finally, somebody else than two drivers who dominated the season. Christian Eisler breaks his duck and he takes the win. Jesper Derlicka has a very good finish, extending his points lead coming into the final round and giving himself a good chance to take the victory. He's been looking strong all season, so this is really good news for Jesper, the number 97. Third place goes to Ben Perez, who is still yet to win, even though he's got 3 championships in the previous 3 seasons. Billy Whalen tried to give it his best, but had to settle for 4th. And how about Nick Harwood going from 7th on the grid to finishing with a top 5 and 5th? The driver behind him had a little bit of contact with Bill Whalen. That's Carl Modoff. He started on the front row, and unfortunately his second 6th place of the season puts him in a bad position. Cristobal Valenzuela with a nice gain of 3 spots up to 7th, and Takeshi Kita going from 11th to 8th. Jean Carini manages a 9th place, and Maxi Sorella rounds out our top 10. Nick?
Yeah, 11th place going to go to Thomas Ellison. And then we saw the battle between Danny Duchesne and Hugo Galaz there. That was for P12, and Duchesne will come out on top by about half a second. He's going to take P12. Galaz in the 18 car takes 13th. A lap down behind them is going to be Justin Hall. Gary Schilling 2 laps down. 16th is going to go to Alex Albert in the 337. And Joe, here's one for your stat book of obscurities. The Montinis are going to finish 17th and 18th to round out the field.
Sad to see them have such a bad race today, but good to see our driver waiting to talk to us. the Iceman finally get a win. And it's been a while since we've been able to call him that because he's not had the results up until now, and somebody's put him back in the fridge because, boy, he was hard to beat today. Congratulations, Christian, on your first win of the season. Christian, do you have a copy? See if he can get himself mic'd up. It's been so long since he's been in the booth, he's forgotten how to get his mic working. Christian, there we go. Now we got you. Congratulations on the victory. You made that look easy out there. Once you were ahead and away, you started to build a gap and never looked back.
Yeah. I'm really happy for today. I didn't expect to win, and didn't expect with this difference. I just maintained focus all the race and building the gap. And I was afraid at the end because Jesper could the difference with save fuel. So at the end, it was a win, and I'm really happy. I didn't expect this.
You said you didn't expect it. So do you not consider this one of your strong tracks? Because based on today's performance, I think you should start considering it a strong track.
Sonoma is not of my favorite tracks. I don't know. I think it's for all the drivers it's the same. So it's the only one explanation I have to this difference. So I don't know. I find the pace. I can build lap times very even all the laps. So I'm really happy. My previous victory in this league always was with some problem with other drivers. So win this way, it's making me very happy.
I would imagine so. You certainly proved yourself. What about it at Sebring? Do you think you can repeat it, take a second win before the season is out?
Well, it would be great. I like Sebring, but I think I liked all the drivers liked to the track, so it was very difficult race next week, and a couple of drivers are fighting for the championship, so it will be tough.
I'm sure they'll be putting in a whole lot of practice, so you'll certainly have to get some laps in to make sure that you can compete with them. But today, you didn't have any competition. Congratulations on the win.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
That was Christian Eisler, the Iceman, back up on the point and taking the win. Up next, Nick has run down our second place finisher and our points leader, Jesper Derlicka.
Yeah, Jesper Derlicka didn't get the win like him and Modov have all year, but Jesper, that was quite a battle we saw you in for the entire race. Talk me through that freight train, and that was great to watch from our standpoint. How was it from your standpoint?
Well, it was great, Nick. Thanks, first of all. But I think it really all just came down to the start of the race there, where I was able to get a good start, able to follow Christian quite easily coming out of the hairpin. And Carl, he was caught a little sleeping there on the start, and I was able to get ahead of Ben and Carl Modov there. So that helped me a lot. That start definitely, because it's difficult to pass here, to say the least. So I just did my normal thing, just took it easy, lifted a little early into all the corners, and I was able to come out of the pits a bit quicker than everyone else, and was able to hold that second place.
Yeah, and you mentioned how difficult it was to pass at this track, and Joe and I up here in the booth, we were talking about how maybe you and the other guys were going to maybe try to jump each other in the pits, and we were talking about your fuel saving. How on earth did you manage to get that big of a gap, and what kind of strategy were you guys, what kind of game were you guys playing, cat and mouse game, trying to see who goes in the pits first?
I mean, I wasn't doing anything. I was just gonna I was just doing what I normally do, just pit as late as possible. And but I can understand trying to pit a little early there, because it could end up in quite the traffic jam if all three of us were to go in at the same time. So Ben had a good idea there. It helped him jump Williams, so good little strat by him there, and he was able to battle me near the end. But yeah, from my point of view from that battle, it was pretty simple.
Yeah, that was fun to watch for sure. The big thing we're wondering about, though, next week, Sebring, how are you feeling going down to Florida to fight for a championship?
In the Ford, I have not driven that track in the Ford yet, so it'll be a brand new experience. And I've got new wheel settings as well, so we'll see how that helps me out.
All right. Well, it's going to be fun to watch for sure. Congratulations on your second place finish tonight. And we'll definitely talk to you in the booth next week, hopefully.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks for everything you guys do. Great broadcast as always. Thanks to the positive mental attitude from everyone. And yeah, have a good night, guys.
That was Jesper Derlicka, our second place finisher. We've also got the last of the podium, Ben Perez, who makes his way up there from one position on the grid. Ben, you were the only one willing to pull off a little bit early, even though you were at the tail of the train. We were all kind of surprised at how long everybody waited to pit, especially when it seemed like you were caught up behind Jesper. What was the reasoning for waiting so long?
Honestly, it was just kind of a heat of the moment thing. I hadn't really I actually didn't think of that until actually literally about a minute. And the reason I actually pulled into the pits earlier than them was because I was out of fuel. I guess they saved an extra lap or something, but when I pit, that was my last lap. So props to them, I guess, for doing a bit of fuel saving.
Yeah, that surprises me as well, since you were at the tail of that train. Now, this gains you a few points on Carl, but not points on Jesper. So are you just thinking win going to Sebring next week, or are you points racing? What do you do with only one round left?
Well, at this point, I think it's going to be pretty hard for me to be able to win the championship, unless Jesper and Carl both, I don't know, crash each other out, I guess, or something. So at this point next week, it's just all about coming in. I mean, that's kind of how it's been for the past last round and this round now is just come in and have some fun. Not worry about the points too much. We've got the team championship, so there's that. But yeah, next week should just be come in, have fun. If I win, I win. If not, then it's okay.
Seems like a good attitude to have. We didn't see this track in the season last season, Sonoma Raceway. So would you like to see this one return when we come back for the winter season here coming up for 2019? Well, I guess the end of 2018, I should say.
This is a pretty fun track. The biggest struggle here, though, it definitely is trying to pass. As you could probably see, I was kind of trying to peek my nose into Jesper the last few laps there, but it's really hard with there not being very hard braking zones besides the hairpin. Really, it's a pretty tough track to pass at, but it is very fun. It's got a lot of flow to it. The only thing that I would ask for the league organizers is to maybe use the cup layout, just because I don't know. I seem to always struggle with that. I think it's called the carousel, but that really, really long left-hander, because I never know when I can hit the gas.
It is patience, Trinan. You're right. That is the carousel. Well, still, you managed to get a third place. Sorry you still haven't won this season, but you're racking up podiums, and I'd say this is one of your better performances we've seen this season.
I think it has been so far, yeah. And I mean, like I've been saying this entire season, the competition's gotten stiffer, so I'm not surprised that I haven't gotten a win. I'm a little sad about it, but that's what the competition's going to do for you.
All right. There's always next season, and there's always next round. Thanks for talking to us, Ben. We'll see you in a week.
Thanks, guys.
That was Ben Perez, third place finisher. And it is going to close things up for us as we give a big thank you one more time to our sponsor, SIMMSA. That is the Simulation Motorsports Association. And you can find them at SIMMSA.net. Also, thank you to the Precision Racing League. They're the organizers behind the American iRacing Tuesday series. They do a lot of work season after season to get this series out and onto the broadcast with us. Also, thank you to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast. You can see those listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to Eric Ekholm and June Lalonde, who provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, of course, Nick, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. We're also on social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. We mentioned it, in a week's time, we are going down to Florida to Sebring. That'll be Tuesday, November 20th at 9 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. Until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.